Well, hello and welcome to our Bible study. I want to apologize about last week. I forgot to tick the public on the video for last week, but it is up if you missed it, and you can go back and find that on the YouTube channel. But today we continue. Isaac has met his bride, and now we turn to the death of Abraham. And scriptures say Abraham gave up the spirit and died at a good old age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. And that was Genesis 25, verse 7. So Abraham, a friend of God, was not translated into heaven like Enoch or Elijah, but died like other men. Neither the cause or the circumstance of Abraham's death are specified in scriptures. All we're told by the scriptures was that at the age of 175 years, Abraham gave up his spirit and died at a good old age, an old man and a satisfied one at that, and he was gathered to his people, Genesis 25, verse 8. To a Hebrew that reads this, the phrase, he was gathered to his people, alludes to nothing less than the immortality of the human soul. And let me explain this. So we're going to note here in Scripture the statement that a deceased person is gathered to his people always occurs before any reference to that person's burial. So that the gathered to his people comes before burial. And the sequence is of the breathing, the last, the physical death, followed by gathering to one's people, or the departure of the soul for the realm in the spirit then follows. And then it's followed by a burial of the physical remains, which then constitute nothing more than an empty shell. At least that's the Hebraic thought. In Hebraic thought, therefore, the words gathered to his people are considered a clear reference to the departed soul being ingathered among the souls of those who have already left this physical world as well. So in other words, Scripture pictures burial as always something that happens after the deceased has been gathered to his people. So clearly the implication is that the person himself or herself has already departed long before and been gathered to his or her people by the time his or her body is lowered into the grave or otherwise interred. Nevertheless, something should be done with the physical remains. They should not be left to biodegrade like the spent shell of a locust or a shed skin of a snake. Abraham had a second wife by this time. He was buried with Sarah, considered his beloved wife of his youth in the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. And his burial was the first and only thing that Ishmael and Isaac did together. To his credit, Ishmael put aside his resentment toward Sarah, at whose word he and his mother had been banished twice, and his animosity toward Isaac, who had replaced him as Abraham's favorite son, and actually worked with Isaac to escort their mutual father's body to settle his remains in an earthly resting place from which he would await the resurrection. As Scripture puts it, Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zochar, the Hittite, which is before Mamre, the field which Abram purchased of the children of Het. There was Abraham buried with Sarah, his wife, and that's Genesis 25, verses 9 through 10. A look back at the life of Abraham, a friend of God, over these past many weeks that we've talked about him. There's a lot that has happened. We began the study of Abraham being called Abram, and in a sense would say, how is this ordinary man, how did he encounter the Most High God over these many years, and watching that journey, how he was humbled, how God transformed him to the extent that he became not only the exalted father, meaning Abram, the Hebrew, but of the Hebrew people, but he became the father of many nations in Hebrew, Abraham. It's kind of, I guess you'd say, one of the more critical theological lessons that we can kind of get is from his life. God came to him and transformed this man who was a mess, and that gives us a little hope as well. According to Hebrew scholars in the past, the man we will get to know this week, these coming weeks, or knew in the past as Abram, later as Abraham, was tested by God 10 times. And each test was kind of like an ox goading, making Abram move, grow, and get closer to the divine plan and to his divine destiny. Through Abraham's tremendous series of ever-deepening encounters with God, of the universe, in the midst of trials and tribulations, we learn not only who he was, but who God is. And moreover, if we will hear, I believe we'll learn a lot about who we were created to be as well. So let's look back just a little bit at what we've learned as we've walked with Abraham through the last 100 years of his life. We walked with him through 8 full-blown God encounters. The original call in Haran was at chapter 12 of Genesis, verses 1 and 3, the first appearance of the promised land, Bethuel. Chapter 12, verse 7, the instructions to walk the length and breadth of the land of Bethuel, as Genesis 13, 14 through 17. The ceremony, covenant with Abraham began in Genesis 15. I guess you would say the second ceremony started in Genesis 17, the support of the covenant God is making. And so there's these divine visitations that come, and we see that in Genesis 18 and 19. The instruction to let Sarah decide Ishmael's fate in Hebron is in Genesis 21. The instructions to present Isaac on Mount Moriah is in Genesis 22. And we've eavesdropped on multiple conversations Abraham has had with angels. We have seen the Lord discipline and then turn around and bless Abraham through an amazing array of life experience. We've seen the Lord forgive many of Abraham's sins. We have seen the Lord cut a covenant with Abraham. We have seen the Lord respond to Abraham's intercessions. And we have felt Abraham's pain and shared his joy on numerous occasions and in a wide variety of circumstances. And through it all, if we have ears to hear and eyes to see, Abraham has taught us important lessons about what it means to be a friend of God. And I think that's one of the more important things, the lessons that we can pull from this man who is called a friend of God. And really, though this is the story of his burial, we'll hear from Abraham again. And that's amazing as we move through into the New Testament. The story is not over. All right, I'll stop there and we'll continue our study next week. Blessings. See you later. Bye now.